I said, I want to meet Gorbachev, and I want to do it soon. I felt it was important, but we had different feelings inside our administration. Still some wariness about the reality of the change and what Gorbachev's heartbeat really was, what his pulse really was.
The George Bush administration spent a long time deciding what their policy should be, whether to continue that of President Reagan when George Bush was vice president, or to make a change.
So it's the power of change that has put an end to the Cold War. The effect of ideas, beliefs, and norms, when altered, they can change the history of the world politics. Oh, this is at least the explanation given by constructivists to the end of the Cold War. Challenging with that approach the dominant theories of international relations, which couldn't predict or give a convincing explanation to what happened to the world in the 26th December 1991.
The biggest thing that has happened in the world, in my life, in our lives, is this. By the grace of God, America won the Cold War.
When the Soviet Union collapsed and the Cold War, which has lasted for 45 years, has come to an end. Neither realists, liberals, institutionalists, nor peace researchers recognized beforehand the possibility of such momentous change, and all of them have been struggling to find explanations consistent with their own theories. At this phase of history, constructivism as a social theory came to introduce a new dimension to the international relations by focusing on the role of ideas, norms, and identities in shaping global politics, where we can find a notable work of Professor Nicholas Onuf, titled Words of Our Making, Rules and Rule in Social Theory and International Relations, where he presents his constructivist approach to international relations. In this work, he elaborates on the idea that the world of international politics is constructed through shared meanings and practices, highlighting the importance of rules and norms in shaping interactions. Onuf's significant contribution to the field of constructivist international relations theory has been influential in shaping the development of constructivism and its application to understanding international politics. Onuf's contribution can be summarized in the following key areas. First one, constructivist methodology and epistemology. Onuf has been instrumental in shaping the epistemological and methodological foundation of constructivism. He has emphasized the importance of understanding how international actors construct their own realities through shared meanings, norms, and languages. His work encourages scholars to focus on the intersubjective processes that shape behavior of states and other international actors. He emphasizes on the role of language and discourses in constructing identities and norms, has been particularly influential in constructivist scholarship. Second one, rule-centered constructivism. Onuf has developed rule-centered constructivism, which emphasizes the role of rules and norms in shaping international behavior. He argued that international relations are governed by a system of rules that are constructed through shared understanding among state and other actors. These rules influence states' actions and interactions, often leading to emergence of international norms and institutions. His approach highlights the importance of understanding how actors interpret and apply rules in practice. Third one, states as a social constructs. So Onuf's work challenges traditional notions of the state as an objective entity fixed. Instead, he sees the states as a social constructs that emerge from shared understanding and interactions among actors. He suggests that states' identities, interests, and behaviors are socially constructed through ongoing processes of negotiation, communication, and interpretations. This perspective shifts the focus from material factors to ideational factors in explaining states' behavior. Fourth one, international legal theory. Onuf's contribution also extends to the realm of international law. He has explored how international law is constructed through interactions of states and other actors. His work delves into the role of legal norms and practices in shaping state behavior and has examined how international law reflects and reinforced certain values and ideologies. Now, speaking about another constructivist theorist, Alexander Wendt, who posited that constructivism as an ontology asserts that reality is socially constructed through ideas, norms, and identities, and interactions among actors. This is in contrast to some other theories, such as realism and liberalism, which primarily focus on material factors like power, capabilities, and institutions. Constructivism ontology suggests that the material world and social reality are interconnected with social interactions and perceptions, shaping how actors understand and respond to the world around them. Now let's explore some of his key contributions in constructivism. Alexander Wendt's groundbreaking article, Anarchy is What States Make of It, The Social Construction of Power Politics, published in 1992, has challenged the traditional realist notion that anarchy invariably leads to conflict and competition among states. He argued that the way states behave in an anarchic system is not solely determined by material factors, but also by their identities and perceptions of each other. States' behavior is shaped by how they define their interests and interact with each other based on these identities. For example, Iran under Shah regime, who adopted liberal policies, enjoyed a very close alliance and friendship with the United States and Israel, and considered one of the closest allies to them. But this relation has changed completely after the Iranian Revolution in 1979, which adopted anti-Western and anti-Israel ideology. Thus, since then, till date, US and Israel consider Iran as a serious threat and an enemy. Same goes for the US perception and stance from nuclear program, where US sees Israel as an ally in the Middle East region. So Israeli nuclear capabilities received as a deterrent against any potential adversaries in the region, while Iran attempts to have one received for US as destabilizing force and threaten factors in the region's security. So as you have noticed, Alexander Wendt's work focuses on the distinction between a self-help system, which is a realist perspective, and a cooperative system, which is constructivist perspective. He suggested that the way states interact in international system is not preordained by structural factors, but it's shaped by their shared beliefs in social interactions. States can cooperate and form alliances based on their shared identities and perceptions of each other's intentions. Let's now try to analyze the Abraham Accord through the lens of constructivism. As you know, the Abraham Accord, signed in August and September 2020, are a set of agreements between Israel and two Gulf countries, the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, aimed at normalizing diplomatic, economic, and cultural relations. First one, constructivism highlights the role of norms and identities in shaping state behavior. The Abraham Accords challenge the long-standing norm in the Arab world of not normalizing relations with Israel until a comprehensive resolution of the Israel-Palestinian conflict. The agreements reflects a shift in the participating countries' identities and norms as they depart from traditional Arab stance. This shift in identity influenced their decisions to engage with Israel openly. Second one, Constructivism argues that a state's actions are influenced by how they perceive others and their interactions. So the Abraham Accords in that sense were a result of how the involved parties perceived each other. The UAE and Bahrain viewed Israel as a potential partner in terms of security, technology, and regional stability. Their interactions with Israel through diplomatic channels, economic cooperations, and cultural exchanges reshaped their perception of Israel from an adversary to potential collaborator. Third one, Constructivism emphasizes the significance of ideas and beliefs. So the agreements signify a shift in the way that UAE and Bahrain conceptualized their relations with Israel. These countries choose to prioritize economic and security interests over historical graveness. The ideas of economic prosperity, security, cooperation, and regional stability played a role in shaping their willingness to engage with Israel. Fourth, social constructivism underscores the role of social interactions and the construction of meaning. So in that sense, Abraham Accords emerged through a series of interactions, negotiations, and dialogue among diplomatic leaders and the public. The transformation of Israel from the isolated actor to a potential partner was constructed through the discourses and narratives surrounding the accord. The public announcement, media coverage, and international reactions, all these contributed to shaping the meaning and legitimacy of this agreement. Now, by coming back to Alexander Wendt contribution to constructivism, in his book Social Theory of International Politics, published in 1999, Wendt introduced the concept of three cultures of anarchy. He categorized the states into three types based on their prevailing beliefs about anarchy. First one, Hobbesian. In this category, states are self-interested and competitive. These states view international system as a dangerous place where self-help and survival are essential. They adopted a competitive and even hostile stance toward other states, assuming that conflict and security dilemma are inevitable due to the anarchic nature of the system. This identity is named after the philosopher Thomas Hobbes, who famously described a state of nature characterized by a war of all against all. Second category is the Lockean states. The states here are self-interested but capable of cooperation through institutions. These states acknowledge anarchy but also believe that cooperation and mutual benefit are possible. They view the international system as a realm where agreements, alliances, and institutions can help mitigate conflicts and promote cooperation. This identity is named after the philosopher John Locke, who emphasized the importance of social contracts and individual rights. Third one, Kantian. States cooperate due shared norms and identities. Named after the philosopher Immanuel Kant, these states have the most positive view of anarchy. They believe that cooperation and peaceful relations are not only possible, but preferable. They focus on building institutions, norms, and shared values to create a more harmonious international environment. Kantian states prioritize diplomacy and international law to maintain peace and resolve conflicts. Alexander Wendt's work extends beyond explaining cooperation. He also provides constructivist explanation for conflicts. He argues that conflicts can arise not only due material interests, but also due conflicting identities, misperceptions, and the way that actors frame issues. Alexander Wendt's ideas emphasize that conflicts and cooperation are socially constructed phenomena. Let's try to apply this into the Gulf crisis of 2017, which also known as the Qatar diplomatic crisis, which involved a series of diplomatic, economic, and political actions taken against Qatar by several Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain. Through the lens of constructivism, we can notice few things. In the Gulf crisis, the states involved had long-standing norms and identities within the Gulf Cooperation Council, which is known as GCC. The crisis challenged the norm of GCC, unity and solidarity. The state perceived Qatar's behavior as diverging from the established norms which influenced their response. Second point you can look at in analyzing this crisis from constructivism lens is that states' actions are influenced by how they perceive others and their interactions. So the Gulf countries' perception of Qatar policies and actions played a crucial role in this crisis. The construction of Qatar as a regional rival or even enemy was shaped by the ways that these countries interpret Qatar's foreign policies choices. Third one, constructivism highlights the significance of ideas in shaping states' behavior. Some saw Qatar's stance as a threat to the regional stability, while others might have viewed it as a legitimate expression of Qatar's foreign policy objectives or choices. These ideas influenced the framing of Qatar as an adversary. Fourth one, social constructivism emphasizes the role of social interactions in the construction of the meaning. In the context of the Gulf crisis, the perception of Qatar as a regional antagonist were not solely based on material factors, but were also constructed through interactions, discourses, and media narratives. The crisis demonstrated how state behavior and identities are socially constructed within the international system. In short, we can say that the Gulf crisis of 2017 can be understood through the constructivist lens by analyzing how norms, identities, interactions, perceptions, and ideas contributed to the framing of Qatar as an enemy by certain Gulf countries. Having said that, now let's look at the different forms or variations of constructivism, where each emphasizes different aspects of how ideas and social processes influence international politics. First one, structural constructivism. Structural constructivism emphasizes that influence of social structure and norms on states' behavior. This form of constructivism suggests that international actors' behavior not solely determined by material capabilities, such as military powers or economic strength, but also by the norms and identities that shape their interactions. Structural constructivists argue that the state's preferences and actions are influenced by social context in which they exist. Norms, values, and identities are seen as powerful forces that can shape states' behavior, even when material interests might suggest different course of action. Second one, agent structure constructivism. It seeks to bridge the gap between the role of social structures and individual agency. It acknowledges that both structures and agents, which are individuals or groups, are important in shaping international politics. This approach highlights the dynamics relations between individuals, ideas, beliefs, and actions, and the broader social structure and norms that frame their behavior. Agent structure constructivism emphasizes that individuals are not mere products of their environment, but also contribute to shaping that environment through their actions, choices, and interactions. Third one, normative constructivism. Normative constructivism places a strong emphasis on the role of norms and values in shaping international politics. This form of constructivism argues that international behavior is influenced by normative considerations, such as human rights, justice, and ethical principles. Normative constructivists argue that states are not solely motivated by self-interest, but are also guided by their commitment to certain norms and values. This perspective highlights the role of moral consideration and the potential for international actors to change their behavior based on the shifts in norms and values. These different forms of constructivism offer varying perspective on how ideas, norms, identities, and social interactions shape international politics. While structural constructivism focuses on the influence of social structures and norms, agent structure constructivism emphasizes the interplay between individual agency and broader structures. And normative constructivism highlights the significance of normative consideration and ethical principles. It's important to note that these forms are not mutually exclusive, and scholars may combine elements of these approaches to analyze and understand the complexities of international relations through constructivist lens. As I have mentioned in this lecture before, that constructivism and mainstream theories in international relations represent two different approaches to understand and explain international politics. While there is some overlap and interactions between these approaches, there are also notable differences that set them apart. Here are some of the main differences between the constructivism and the mainstream theories in international relations. First one being nature of the international reality. Mainstream theories, which are basically realism and liberalism, often focus on the material factors such as power and material interest as a primary drivers of international relations. Realism emphasizes the competitive nature of states to pursue power and security, while liberalism focuses on cooperation. Constructivism, on the other hand, challenges the primacy of material factors and emphasizes the role of ideas, norms, identities, and social interactions in shaping international reality. It argues that the way actors perceive and interpret the world influence their behavior and interactions. Second one, anarchy and cooperation. Realism views anarchy as a central feature of international relations, often leading to self-help and conflict due to the lack of central authority. Liberalism acknowledges anarchy and emphasizes the potential for cooperation through institutions. On the other hand, while constructivism also acknowledges anarchy, it also highlights that the nature of anarchy is socially constructed and varies based on how states and actors interpret it. Constructivism emphasizes the potential for cooperation based on shared norms and identities. Third one, state behavior and motivations. Mainstream theories often assume that state behavior is driven by rational calculations of self-interest, whether it's pursuit of power, security, or even economic gain. Constructivism, from its side, challenges the rational assumptions and suggests that state behavior is influenced by ideational factors, including norms, beliefs, and identity. States' actions may not always be purely driven by rational calculations, but can be shaped by their identities and the meaning that they attach to their actions. Fourth one, change and agency. While some mainstream theories acknowledge the potential for change, they often emphasize the constraints of international system and the enduring nature of power dynamics. Constructivism highlights the role of agency and the potential for actors to reshape international norms, identities, and institutions through their interactions and the diffusion of ideas. Constructivism allows for a more dynamic understanding of a change in international relations. Fifth one, methodological approach. Mainstream theories often rely on deductive reasoning, formal models, and quantitative analysis to develop and test hypotheses, while constructivism often employs qualitative methods, including discourse analysis and historical case studies, to examine how ideas and social processes shape international politics. It places a strong emphasis on understanding actors, perceptions, and interpretations. In short, the main differences between constructivism and mainstream theories in IR lies in their focus on ideational factors, the role of norms and identities, the socially constructed nature of international realities, and the emphasis on qualitative methods, while mainstream theories emphasizes material factors and rational calculations. Constructivism highlights the influence of ideas, norms, and social interactions in shaping the behavior of states and international actors. Now let's look at some of the common criticisms that have been raised against constructivism in international relations. First one, overemphasizing on ideas and norms. Some critics argue that constructivism places too much emphasis on ideational factors, such as norms, identities, and ideas, while downplaying the importance of material interest in power dynamics. They contend that ignoring material factors can lead to an incomplete understanding to international relations. Second one, lack of a clear theoretical framework. Critics sometimes point out that constructivism lacks a unified and coherent theoretical framework, making it difficult to apply the theory constantly across different cases. This can lead to ambiguity and confusion in its application. Third one, limited predictive power. Constructivism is often criticized for its limited ability to make precise predictions about state behavior and outcomes. Critics argue that the theory's focus on the role of ideas and social processes can make it challenging to anticipate specific actions or developments. Fourth one, difficulty in operationalization. Constructivist concepts like norms and identities can be difficult to operationalize and measure empirically. This makes it challenging to test constructivist hypotheses using rigorous empirical methods. Fifth one, downplaying of material constraints. Some critics argue that constructivism downplays the impact of material constraints such as economic factors, technological capabilities, and military power on state behavior. They believe that these factors can play a significant role in shaping international outcomes. 6.1. Lack of attention to state interest. Constructivism focus on identity and norms can sometimes lead to an underemphasis on the state pursuit to their national interest. Critics argue that states are still primarily motivated by self-interest, and constructivism may not adequately account for this aspect. 7.1. Limited scope of explanation. Some critics contend that constructivism is better suited for explaining change in norms emergence rather than providing a comprehensive explanation for all aspects of international relations. So that's all for today's lecture. Don't forget to share this video and others with your friends who might be interested in IR. See you next time. This was Dr. Lisa.